We got Jim Wells in. He's the owner of Papa's Smokehouse.
1986 graduate from Fort Walton Beach High School. Love smoking meat. So we have a 250 model, which will hold 250 pounds of meat.
So even when storms come in, you have someone out there braving the weather. Welcome to the Fiber Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Fiber. And today we've got probably fan favorite of Niceville, or just the whole region probably. But we got Jim Wells in. He's the owner of Papa's Smokehouse. And if you have watched any of our previous episodes with me and or Steve, I talk about Papa's Smokehouse probably every time because we always talk about barbecue somehow. And I always bring up you guys because it's arguably some of the best I've had.
Awesome.
One in my life, but like generally speaking, in the area, I think it's one of my favorites.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Jim, do us a favor for all the viewers that may not know who you are. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, 1986 graduate from Fort Walton Beach High School. Stayed in the area for a little while, went to nursing school. Worked as a nurse for 30 years, 32 years total in healthcare. And then decided to retire from nursing and wanted to open a restaurant, and love smoking meats and cooking different foods. So thought this would be a great opportunity for us, and wanted to come back home, be closer to my grandkids, my parents. And so that's what brought us back.
Awesome. Now, obviously nursing to barbecue,
yes.
That's a bit of a jump. You've been smoking meats your whole life, or was it something that you picked up, later on as kind of a hobby?
So probably 20-something years I've been smoking meats, mainly at home and various things like that. But part of my responsibilities, I was a chief nursing officer at various hospitals throughout my career, and I always felt like the staff that had to be there on the holidays, that we should be doing something for them. Mm-hmm. So we would go in and cook for the staff. And so really enjoyed cooking and smoking different things for the staff. Just felt like that was an obligation we should do for those that were working on the holidays.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, you guys at the restaurant have quite a interesting setup for where you actually smoke your meats. Now, Triple B up in Crestview, I've seen them, how they do everything. Usually has like those giant trailers, giant smokers. Is there anything unique about yours that helps you, achieve the flavor and texture and I guess how much it melts in your mouth? What do you guys do differently to make your smoked meats so good?
Well, we're a Texas style, so essentially we use a lot of dry rubs, mm-hmm. right? That's what our primary focus is dry rubs. Sauces are a complement. Mm-hmm. If you want sauce, you shouldn't have to have sauce mm-hmm. on your barbecue. So that's the main thing. Our smokers, we have J&R Oiler smokers. They're the oldest manufactured smokers, commercial smokers mm-hmm. in the country. They've been around since the 60s.
Oh, wow.
So we have a 250 model, which will hold 250 pounds of meat.
Jeez. And
we have a 700 model out back, which actually will hold 1,000 pounds of meat. Damn. And they're both all wood smokers. So that sets us apart from a lot of the barbecue restaurants around. Most, especially chain-related mm-hmm. barbecue joints, are gas cooked barbecue, and they just use wood as a enhancement for a little bit of flavor, but they cook primarily with gas. We're 100% wood. There's no gas product for us.
How much does that affect how do I put it? Because I don't know barbecue all that much, but when you're cooking it, obviously there's always slow roasting, all that fun stuff where you're cooking it for 16 hours or even longer than is cooking with wood tend to be a significantly longer process because kind of maintaining that temperature is a bit harder?
Yeah, definitely. It's a little bit harder to maintain temperature. Our smokers help us with that. Uh-huh. So they do have a little electronic component that helps with the opening air dampers mm-hmm. to be able to, cause your heat to rise or lower just a little bit. But we still have to maintain and make sure that the wood is in 24/7. We're maintaining the wood, making sure that we've got enough in there that it's cooking and it's staying on temperature. Especially when there's storms and various things like that out, we have to worry about power outages.
Oh, yeah.
And so we still have to maintain, making sure that the food is cooking at appropriate temperatures.
So even when storms come in, you have someone out there braving the weather to keep the smoker going?
It's primarily me and my son, Colby. Him and my daughter, Cashin, are my partners in this venture. And so Colby and I kind of maintain the smokers and making sure that the wood is up to par and that it's dried appropriately. Because, if it's too wet, it just smolders and smokes. And you can have good smoke, you can have bad smoke. And, if it's too wet, it'll give you some bad smoke, and that gives you a little more harsh flavor.
Okay. How do you guys, do you have like a moisture meter, or do you have your wood set somewhere where it obviously has to stay dry?
Yeah, we check with a meter just to make sure that we're running appropriate. We can always dry our wood. That's a little bit of a longer process for us, and we just worked out a possible arrangement with somebody to use a kiln to help make sure that our wood stays at 20% moisture or below. But yeah, we try and use seasoned wood. Most of the wood that we're getting is about 2 years old. And it's usually dried pretty well for us. Occasionally we'll run into a little bit of an issue and we have to dry it ourselves. But
now, when you obviously have to source this wood from somewhere, do you only usually use a certain type of wood, like oak, you name it? Do you guys have did you test a bunch of different types of wood to see which provided the best flavors, most optimum cooking times? What went into that kind of decision and thought process?
Yeah, so growing up here in the South, hickory is one that's used a lot. Pecan woods are usually used a lot. Again, we're Texas style, so most of Texas uses a post oak or some type of oak wood or a mesquite. Mesquite to me is a little bit too harsh. So I like the mellowness of an oak, and so that's what we use primarily for us is oak.
How does that even affect the flavor?
Yeah, so it has different wood has different flavors. Like a mesquite to me is kind of like a harsh or a more harsh type flavor. Hickory has a great smell. Love it. There's a barbecue restaurant in Fort Walton, Kim folks, they use great smell every time you walk by, really good. And that flavor gets into the meat. So whatever you're smelling, that's the kind of flavor that it's going into the meat itself. Oak is kind of a mild fragrance, and so that's kind of why we use that. We want the meat to shine, and that with our seasonings and the different smoke from the hickory or from the oak is what helps our meat maintain its appropriate flavor or our flavor profile.
Interesting. I've never quite understood that. My dad has a smoker at his house, but I've never understood how the little pellets that he gets or how that truly affects flavor and everything.
Well, a lot of people like pork, for instance, they'll use a cherry or something along those type lines or an apple flavoring to help enhance that meat, give it a little more sweeter flavor, smoke flavor. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that at home many times.
Yeah.
But that's just not what we choose to use at the restaurant itself.
Yeah. So after, obviously, you retired from nursing, and you spent how many years between when you retired to when you opened the restaurant?
I started, excuse me. I retired in April of 2023. Okay. Yes. And so then I immediately started to go out and look at different smokers. So I drove all around the country looking at various smokers, trying to decide what is the best smoker for us, what will work for us, what won't work for us, what has more man hours that you have to put in versus less man hours, those sorts of things. So immediately we started that process right away. Okay. And I moved back here from Arizona in September of 2023. We rented our building here in Niceville at 205 John Sims Parkway. We rented that building in August of 23. And then in February of 24, we opened the doors.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Was that building already a restaurant before that, or?
It was an old KFC. I'm not sure exactly what had happened. to KFC. When we went in and looked at the building, we weren't 100% sure that that's where we wanted to go, mainly because there was a lot of work that needed to be done. Mm-hmm. I think it closed during COVID. I'm not 100% positive about that, but that's what it appeared to look like to me. They still had chicken batter and things still around the fryers. So I think they just left for that evening, and then we're told they weren't coming back.
Just never open again.
I'm not 100% positive, but that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of work to get it back into working order. And our landlord, Mike Chesser, did an amazing job. Certainly been great to work with him and got the building to look the way it does now. And so he did a great job and worked with us on that.
That's awesome. So you said you went around to, just looking for the right smoker to use. Had you ever used something like maybe that industrial size or commercial level, or if so, what do you look for in that type of thing? I know you said man hours and obviously some of the other features that go into it, but like what do you use ultimately? What made you decide on the one you have now?
Yeah, so I've never used one that has been industrial grade by any means whatsoever. A 500-gallon offset is probably the biggest that I've ever worked with before, but the things that I looked for was consistency with the equipment, how well was it insulated, because that helps maintain the heat.
Yeah.
Also, it makes the wood last a little bit longer. We went and looked at some gas units, but we knew pretty much right off the bat that we weren't going to go with a gas smoker. Again, we're more traditionalists, and, so we stick more with wood product versus gas product.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with the gas.
Yeah.
It certainly is much more efficient from a cooking standpoint, but to me, there's a little bit of a difference in flavor between wood and gas.
Okay. Is it also like a consistency thing where like gas may not be or maybe it's a little bit more consistent than wood because there's that fluctuation in temperature?
Yeah, gas is definitely a much more consistent cook than wood is. Wind and everything else will affect our cook. So if it's really windy outside, we're going to burn through a lot more wood. We have to make sure that the dampers are working appropriately just so it's not getting too hot with the extra wind that's coming through. Same thing in the cold. It tends to burn a lot more wood than during a hot summer night. So
consider that. So you, one thing I love about your guys, or you and your restaurant, is that you brought your kids into, managing it, running it, and everything like that. And especially when we filmed your business spotlight, I remember in particular, when we were talking about it, you were like, is it okay if I bring in Cashin and Colby? And I'm like, yeah, of course. If they have things to add, adds to, what makes you guys unique. And I love the fact that when I asked, I think Cashin was first, excuse me. And she looked at you and you were like, you say that you're a co-owner. And I love that because it's like, I've worked with my dad, my brother's worked with our dad and everything like that. And it's always kind of like cool. It's like, I think it's unique that that you guys are so close together and have built something so quickly to be so successful already, and that so many people love, and that, for you, it's just like, it was a matter of pride. Because I saw you when we were talking, I would look over at you, you're just kind of staring, like smiling a little bit, but it was so cool to see you guys like, that's the co-owner, that's the co-owner. And then, you get to share this with your kids. Like, is that something that you maybe dreamed of for a long time, and now it's just like, it's all come to fruition?
I don't know that I dreamed about it for a long time. It was always in the back of my head. Really, this is really for them. Not that I couldn't use the money. I mean, obviously, but this is really for them and me to give them an opportunity, to start with something.
Yeah.
And it's very hard work getting this started, and certainly it's a different type of job from nursing and healthcare, but there's a lot of similarities too, budgets and man hours and, cost and, just dealing with individuals and, we have the public and everything else. And that's my favorite part of it is getting in front of the public and talking to them. I really want the kids to start getting more involved in that. I think Colby and Cashin both do outstanding with the public. Probably much better than me. So I'm not sure why I'm the face. But I really enjoy that. Cashin is amazing to me with her memory. It's like a photographic memory. She'll come home and tell us about, a couple that she met in the restaurant, that day or that evening or whatever, or something that was going on with them. And inevitably within, a week or so, we'll see those same people. And she's like, oh, well, look, there they are right there, and she'll go over and talk to them. And she's constantly cutting up with them. Colby likes to pick at the people coming through the line, especially during college football season. He is an Auburn fan, so that is a problem that he has. And he needs to admit that and kind of move forward. But he likes to pick on other people. Baseball season too. He likes to pick on the brave folks a little bit. So
what's his team?
So baseball, I think it's Philly, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that one. I don't follow his baseball very well, so I'm not sure. But Auburn, 100%, he's all in. I can't help him with that.
Okay. Yeah. We all have our faults. It's okay. Yeah. I will say it's funny because when I moved here from California, like college football, while it can be popular, like you have like USC, UCLA, a couple other teams that are huge, but by far and large, nobody particularly cares about college football. So when I moved out here and people are like
sacrilegious.
Exactly. Like the amount of people are like, what do you do with your life? I'm like, evidently nothing. I'm like, I don't watch like Alabama. I don't watch LSU. Like I don't care. I only watch for like professional football, but that tends to be like, oh, don't talk to me anymore. Like just go away or something. So that's, Colby and I don't know if we get along at that point then.
He does very well talking with the public and even doing things like this. He does a great job. Cashin likes to stay behind the scenes a little bit more than he does, but yeah, this is really for both of them, and anything that we continue to add to our brand as far as maybe a second store or anything like that, it's really for the kids.
Yeah. Did you have to teach them from like when you first started, kind of like obviously how to cook the meats and obviously sort of like the sort of show them the ropes on like how to manage people, restaurants, schedules, things like that? Was that all stuff you taught them, or is it experience they brought in to help enhance like what you already knew?
Yeah, so I think both of them brought in different aspects of experiences that they've been through.
Yeah.
Colby was an ABA teacher for a long time, so he worked with special needs kids, and so he really has a calmness about him, and certainly helps manage the staff from that perspective. He probably isn't as high strung as I am, in a lot of ways. But yeah, he brought that. He had also worked in barbecue restaurants before, back in the past. He had worked for several of them for quite a few years. So that helped. We needed that experience actually to be able to get the small business loan. We had to have 1 year experience in the restaurant business before we were even eligible to apply. And so Colby brought that to the table.
Oh, awesome.
As well. So yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I was just going to say in Cashin, she worked in healthcare. She worked in various areas, IT as well as unit secretary at the hospital. And so she was constantly out in front of public all the time, and she just manages that very, very well.
So it all just folded together perfectly almost.
It did, and we're family, so not that we don't have some squabbles here and there, it's just part of being a family.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's great to be able to work side by side with them, and get to spend time with them. There's a lot of families that don't have that quality time anymore, and I've just learned as I've gotten older, and as my parents have gotten older, there is. Nothing can replace that time.
Yeah.
There's no amount of money or anything that is worth that. It's having that face-to-face time and being able to spend it with family is what's important. So
yeah. So when you moved from Arizona, did Colby and Cashin live here already, or did they kind of come back with you?
Cashin lived with us. Colby has lived here pretty much his whole life.
Oh, okay.
And Colby has 2 of my granddaughters. He has our 2 oldest. Taylor and Tatum. Taylor goes to Choctawhatchee, and Tatum is now at Meg's.
Okay.
And then our youngest granddaughter, she lives in Alabama with her mother, Mercedes, and our youngest granddaughter's name is Camden.
Okay.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get folded into the restaurant at some point, I imagine, right? I think Colby said one of his daughters works kind of part-time at the restaurant.
She does. Taylor works for the most part every Tuesday. She did work this past Saturday because we had some folks out. But yeah, she works every Tuesday. But they're all three are part of our logo. They're the three pigs that are in our logo. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. I love that.
And we did go to, so I don't want to make it that, 25 years worth of experience, just backyard cooking was good enough to open a restaurant. We did go to Texas. We sought out a class to teach us how to really cook Texas-style barbecue. During that class, the guy who was teaching it, his name is Dante Ramirez. Dante was part owner of 4 smokehouses in Texas at the time. He's since sold that and opened up a taqueria and a barbecue restaurant.
Oh, cool.
So he has 2 separate restaurants now. But Dante kind of took us under his wing because he knew we were opening up a restaurant and kind of worked with us a lot. He gave us the opportunity to go out and work at his restaurant to really see what commercial cooking looked like, how to manage the sides, how to manage the food, how to manage all the vendors, all the orders, that sort of stuff. So he gave us that opportunity to learn, and that was invaluable. And, he's a good friend. We could call on him today, and, he certainly would help us out a lot. He actually loaned us his primary pit master. Oops, sorry about that.
You're good.
He loaned us his primary pit master the first week that we were open.
Oh, cool.
To come and help us get started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like that the barbecue community is very close-knit, even like on a national scale. Because I think it might be 3 years now, Triple B again. We were out there for something, and I forget that we had a couple employees here that actually participated in like not the professional side, but I think they have like there's like 2 levels to it. You have like the professional people that travel around with the giant trailers and cook and compete. And then there's like the smaller teams that are like locals that do it. But like every single one of them was like, they knew each other, they would help each other. And like the professional teams would come around and talk to the other teams, on the, I guess the smaller side of things. But they all seemed very supportive, or like they knew each other. Yeah. So I guess that leads me to my next question. You said you went to Texas to learn from, what was his name again?
Dante Ramirez.
Okay. Dante Ramirez. Was there anything in particular that you learned that sort of surprised you with the Texas style, or something that maybe you didn't do as you did it in your backyard, and things like, what kind of surprised you the most from that whole experience?
There wasn't any surprises really about the cooking process. It was really more about the preparation. And how to figure out how much meat do you cook on a daily basis? How much, potatoes do you cut and cook for, your potato salad? How many beans, should you make for the day? Everything we do is homemade and from a recipe. We don't use anything that's prepackaged already. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did is utilize, different homemade recipes to cook our food with, so that way every day everything is fresh. And just learning that process and kind of how to make it work, that was super interesting to me. And I'll give you an example. So we used my grandmother's recipe for banana pudding. And in my head, every time I've ever made it, right, I just make everything, right? I make the components for the base, for the pudding. And then I cut my bananas, I put my vanilla wafers in, and, that sort of stuff. And that's it, and I didn't think twice about it. Well, commercial cooking's a little bit different because, once you cut your bananas, eventually they'll turn brown, right? If they sit there long enough. The sugar and stuff like that just causes it to start aging a little bit quicker, and it starts breaking the banana down. Same thing with the cookies. The cookies go from a crunchy hard to kind of a soggy wet, right? So now we make the base, right? And we cut the base, and we don't cut the bananas or the cookies. We don't put those in until we're ready to put them out to sell that particular day.
Oh, okay.
So it's just we hold the base by itself. And in my head, I never would have thought of that.
A whole different way to think of things, especially once you go to like that scale of it. You guys are pretty heavily involved in the community too. I know, you said you would like to maybe step back a little bit and Colby and them take it more on their part, but you guys are involved with like Fort Walton Beach Chamber, Niceville Chamber, kind of all over the place. What is it about you and this community that you're like, I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to communicate with them and really just take an actual role in making it better?
Well, this is my home, and I want my home to be the best that it can be. And, part of that is us being good stewards as far as citizenship goes. And, what can we do to enhance this community and the restaurant community, both? How do we enhance those and make them much more vibrant? How do we attract more people to come into Niceville, more businesses to come into Niceville, more visitors to come into Niceville? To me, that's just part of being a good steward, and that's what it's about. And so, in order to do that, you have to get ingrained in the community, whether it's, through the chambers, through school functions. We sponsor a Little League team, just various things like that, is just trying to be as involved as possible. It doesn't hurt to keep your name out in front of people, obviously, but we do it to try and make this a better place. And I'll give you a good example. So a project that I'm working on right now, and I'm working with the Okaloosa County School Board Foundation Board to try and make this happen. I'm hoping that they will be my not-for-profit to help back us on this. But the last number I had, they're getting me newer numbers, but the last numbers I had is that there's about 65 kids that are going to Niceville-related schools, public schools, that are considered homeless. Now, those kids do get food when they're at school, right? They get, breakfast and lunch, that's paid for through the school programs that they have. But what about when they go home? What about when school's not in? We're on spring break this week. What are those kids doing for food? As adults, we put ourselves in situations that, are a result of our actions. But kids, very seldom do they ever put themselves in that situation. They're usually a byproduct of the situation that the parents have made. And, some of those choices aren't choices that they would have liked to have made. It's just situational things that have happened that have led to a problem where they don't have a stable home. And so it hurts my heart for kids to know that there's kids out there that aren't eating and having a meal, especially when, I run a restaurant or I'm at home and eating supper. I think about that, and that bothers me. And so we're trying to work with the School Board Foundation Board to see if we can't do something about that, some sort of voucher program that we can, go to the various businesses here in Niceville and Blue Water and the various restaurants and see if we can't put together some sort of program to make sure that these kids are all fed appropriately.
That's awesome. Is there anything that, I guess, to the viewers, if you have an opportunity, is there something that any restaurant or any business in the area that can they reach out to someone to maybe support this in any way, or is it still not quite to that level of conversation yet?
Well, we don't have everything finalized. We're trying to get that worked out here hopefully soon. I know the foundation board member, Debbie Tate, is who I've been working with about this. She was looking to see how much money the board still had for the remainder of this year. And I was very clear with her that, Debbie, I'm not expecting the school board to fund this. I mean, there's plenty of businesses here in the Niceville area to support our community. So those businesses and then various restaurants, we will go out to them. We're not there yet, but we're getting close, and I'm going to be coming. I'm going to come talk to you. And this is for the kids. This is for our community. So this is certainly something that we all should be rallying behind.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I had no idea that was even like that many kids. I mean, I'm sure this could even grow to like the other parts of the Panhandle. I mean, Destin probably has similar problems, Fort Walton and beyond.
That's what we would like. We have to start somewhere, right? Because I can't remember what number they threw out when I asked about how many homeless kids there were in Okaloosa County, but it was a large number. And I was like, ooh, I can't bite off that much.
Yeah.
Let me start small. What is it here? Mm-hmm. Let's get, some sort of framework working. Let's make sure we can dial in everything that we need to make sure the program is successful, and that we can make sure that these kids are eating appropriate. And then we'll start spreading out. Absolutely. We should be all over Okaloosa County. That's where our ultimate goal would be. But this is definitely something that I feel like we as a community should get behind. I would venture to say there's hopefully nobody out there, or certainly very few people that, wouldn't be bothered by kids not being able to get fed.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Hopefully that, gets off the ground sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I always understand those things can be quite the undertaking too, because there's a lot of, county or city ordinances or, whatever kind of goes into that. But that's an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, and we don't want to recreate the wheel. We're also checking with other schools in the state of Florida. Does anybody have a program that can work through this? And there are various programs in this county that help with various aspects of things. Like there's a program now where some of the kids get sandwich bags sent home on Friday, so they have food for the weekend. But what we hear is that they really go through that bag, on the first night.
Yeah.
And then there's some kids also that don't qualify for that program, so they're not getting that. So how do we make it work for everybody?
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it already. The initial idea is to sort of provide like a voucher where it would go to that kid and they can bring it home. I'm assuming to their whole family. Is that kind of the idea, to support the whole family, or is it just technically, I guess, the kids that would qualify?
Well, obviously the program is built around kids because, people can get behind kids. We would certainly try and have some sort of program that the family could come in and get a bite to eat. And I'm not sure, how it works just yet. We're trying to figure that piece out. Does some people, get vouchers to come to Papa's, this week, and some get, vouchers to go to other restaurants here in town, this week, and then that rotates around to the various restaurants, and then, we turn those vouchers in. The vouchers would only be for cost of food.
Yeah.
So also different restaurants have different cost for food. So if we said, and I'm just making up a number here, if we just said $6 is what the voucher is going to be worth, and that's what you're going to get reimbursed when you turn that voucher back in, is that $6. Let's be clear, $6 doesn't cover, labor, equipment, all the prep, all the seasoning, all the food for a family of four, per voucher. That $6 wouldn't cover that. But we're trying to figure out what is the right number, because it may be, it may be $8 for me. It may be $5 for a place like Chick-fil-A, so everybody has different costs. So we've got to figure out what is a good cost that all of us would be okay with, knowing we're not going to make any money off of it. And there's no goal to make money off of this. The goal is to provide food for kids that need food and, and their families as a byproduct.
That's an awesome initiative. That is super cool.
Well, that's the next thing that we're trying to bite off and chew a little bit here. Yeah. So hopefully we can get it up and running. Really would like to see it in full effect by school year next year. So
okay, yes, August is usually when they kick off everything, right? Yeah. Okay, that's not too far away, but I feel like it's attainable. That's awesome though.
We'll see. I'm coming to ask all these businesses.
I'll leave a link to something, maybe an email, or we'll figure out something. I'll put something on the video. I guess that leads into the next part, because I think that's a perfect transition to what you have planned next. I know maybe the last time we talked, which was probably when did we do the business spotlight? Was that 2 or 3 months ago? Something like
that? Yeah, about 3.
Yeah, something like that. And you had potentially mentioned like you were looking at expanding, finding new opportunities. Is that still kind of on the horizon, or is that taking kind of a back seat until, till it feels right?
So we just finished year number 2. So February 28th was our 2-year anniversary. So now we're on year 3. So we've made it through those first 2 years that are a trouble spot for a lot of restaurants, and understandably so after going through them. Yeah, we definitely would like to expand. There's areas in our market that certainly look good to us. We get a lot of feedback from people in those areas, places like Crestview, Freeport. Those are all areas that we certainly would look at for a second store. But yeah, if you asked what my 10-year plan would be, I would love to have 3 or 4 of these up and running, and also various projects in those communities to help with other issues that the community is suffering. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What is it? You talked about how the first few years are always kind of trouble for restaurants. What did you learn during your first 2 years that you've now kind of made changes for? And if you can, do you want to divulge like what those changes kind of were?
So the 2 biggest factors in running a restaurant is food costs, so cost of goods, and payroll. We pay our folks above restaurant minimum wage pay. They are all above minimum wage, even regular minimum wage. I did not feel like I've been to too many places where, people say, well, you're just wanting us to tip so that you don't have to pay your employees. We pay our employees. And so I want to make sure that people understand that tips are a courtesy for good service and good dialogue and good interaction with the staff.
Yeah.
And they are certainly appreciated. The staff get those tips. We do not, as leadership, we do not touch anything that comes through the restaurant on its daily basis. We don't touch any of those. They go 100% to the staff. Because we don't have servers, our tips are shared equally amongst everybody that's working that day. So they all have an opportunity, and we've been blessed. We've done fairly well as a restaurant for being here in Niceville. We've been accepted into the community very well, and we certainly are appreciative of that. But back to your question. So cost of goods is probably the biggest thing. Meat is so expensive right now, especially beef. Beef, when we first started 2 years ago, brisket was, roughly $3.83 a pound. That has gone up significantly in that time frame. We've only had one course of changes with prices, and they were minimal changes that we went up. We did not go up when brisket went up this last time. We did not change our prices. We wanted to ride that out and just make sure that we can still provide high-quality meats and goods at, competitive prices. And, people say that, gosh, barbecue is so expensive and things along those lines. And, compared to 20 years ago, barbecue is expensive. I mean, you used to be able to go buy barbecue for virtually nothing. I mean, a pork butt would cost you 99 cents a pound. And, now it's $1.80 something a pound, or, maybe you can find it as low as $1.50 a pound. So everything has gone up, and the cost. And then you have, expenses in the restaurant. You have, payroll, various things along those lines that you have to do. So we try and keep our prices as competitive. If you look at the amount of meat that you get with 2 sides, it's comparable, if not better, than most of the restaurants in this area. Yeah. And that's where we want to be. We aren't interested in trying to make as much off of everybody as we can. We want to make, enough that people continue to come back and feel like they're getting a great value for the price. And, that's on us to make sure that we present it that way. And so that's what we try and do. Yeah.
Well, you do a great job. Every time I go in there, I think my stomach is always, or my eyes are much bigger than my stomach, always. I always end up either eating way too much, but it is so, so, so good. I've been telling my in-law, they just moved like five houses down, and every time I'm driving back home.
Oh, is that too close?
No, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. I guess we'll have to see. No. It's funny when me and my wife, when we first started dating and after she moved in with me, I lived in a condo that was probably 150, 200 yards away from my parents' house. So we lived there for about a year. Now, my parents, they never just came over randomly, but when they were looking for houses here in like where we live, because we've planned on starting a family sometime soon. And they're like, well, we want to be close when you have kids and everything like that. So like, all right, cool. We'll look in where we are. And then they were looking in houses, like literally 5 houses down. We sat down, like, is that too close? I'm like, I don't really care. I was like, we lived for a year 200 yards away from mine. So I was like, we got my brother lives about 300 yards away. We have my brother's sister-in-law and brother-in-law live about 600 yards away. And then my sister-in-law's parents live about a half a mile away. So the only thing we need now is my parents to move about 200 yards away from us because they lived in Destin. So it doesn't bother me, but I guess we'll have yet to see, right?
Yeah, my wife wants to buy some property and just to have a compound. So, each of the kids can have their own house in that compound and then come over to our house to eat. And I'm like, well, the grandkids, absolutely. Yeah.
My brother's been saying that all the time. He wants to buy a huge plot of land and just everybody build a house right around it or something like that. I'm like, good luck with that one. I don't know where you're going to get that anymore, but oh man, I had a question in my mind. I completely forgot it. Oh, dang.
Sidetracked you.
No, it's okay though. I'll have to think about it, but dang it, I'm not going to remember what that question was. That's all right. I think we're getting close to the end of the podcast. Jim, all I can say is I tell everybody about you guys all the time. Your son turned me on to the the brisket mac and cheese, which is by far some of the best I've had ever. And I think what I really like is that
It'll put you in a coma.
It will, yeah. It's done it twice. It is so good. Like, I think the cool thing is there's 2 things, actually, I just remembered. So Colby told me that with your guys' employees that you guys had, obviously you just finished year 2, you guys still have maintained more or less everyone that started and opened the restaurant, right?
We probably have about half of what opened the restaurant left. But yeah, it's been important to us. And, if you treat employees appropriately and treat them good and pay them appropriately and, communicate effectively, then, that's what people want, right? They just want to be heard. They want to be, seen, and, they want to know that they have value within your organization. And
some stability.
Ours certainly does. We value each and every one of them. And the new additions that we've gotten have been phenomenal. Donald is great at cutting. He's the primary cutter. And so if you don't know, when you come into our restaurant, it is Texas style. So you'll go up to the glass and you order, and they'll cut your meats right in front of you. That way it's not something that's just been stewing in a pan or whatever, sitting there getting cold. They'll pull it out, cut it fresh for you. You can also, this is a little nugget for everybody, and not everybody knows this, but you can also ask for samples. So if you haven't tried, say, the pork belly, then you can come in and say, hey, can I try a sample of the pork belly? And we're happy to cut you a sample of it, give you a taste. We will also do that with the sides. So if you're not sure about pineapple coleslaw or smoked beans or whatever it may be, then, you can ask for a sample. Want to make sure you get what you want.
Yeah.
So when you go to your table, you're satisfied. You're not sitting there saying, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have got this and I got something else.
Yeah. So. Which we'll have to say, everything you make, as far as I've tried most of it right now, has been excellent. So even if you do samples, you're going to love everything, so you're not going to get a wrong one. What I also thought was cool, I think Colby was explaining it a little bit, that even with some of the existing employees, people that started from the beginning, they've actually sort of helped create the menu a bit more. I think you have someone that makes the coleslaw that's an employee. I know the mac and cheese, I think, comes from one of the employees. I think that's super cool because, again, you don't see a lot of restaurants where, just, I would say, regular employees, but everybody has potentially to add something that could be a fan favorite or, add to the menu that could be a staple.
Yeah, I would say, Miss Victoria, she makes our collard greens for us on Saturdays. We do collards on Saturdays. And they are 100%, stem picked. They're washed. I mean, it's 100% homemade, everything that we do. She puts a lot of love and time and energy in making sure that the greens are really good. And I would venture to say we have the best greens in the area. I know other people may think theirs are but they're wrong. I'm kidding. there is good food here in the community, and I'm appreciative. We try and support other restaurants as much as we can. We go out, we spend our money in those places. We want everybody to be successful here. There's a lot of good food here in this area. We're just one of them in a long list. So if you haven't tried us, come try us. We're here. We're here to stay.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming in today. If you guys haven't tried Papa's Smokehouse, you need to try it every day for the rest of your lives. It is so good. Colby lives off of the mac and cheese brisket, or brisket mac and cheese. I do too. I recommend it. But I also had
loaded potatoes. Man, they're great. And a loaded potato is a meal by itself. It's $13. I mean,
that's not bad.
No, not at all.
That's a good deal because it's filling. You'll eat probably half, if that.
Yep.
But I also had your sample platter or what? It's like 3 different meats. Again, you can't go wrong. It is so good. So thank you so much for coming in today. Yeah. Is there anything that you want the good people of Niceville, any of our viewers, that you want to know or that you want them to know about Papa's Smokehouse?
We're located at 205 John Sims Parkway in Niceville. We're right across the street from Turkey Creek. Come and see us. We have people every day that say, I didn't even know you were here. I'm not sure how you drive by it for 2 years and not know that we're here. But I promise you, if you come in, you're going to have great customer service. We're going to offer you some great food. If there's any issues or problems, we absolutely will address those and take care of it. I had a lady reach out to me. We make Brunswick stew on Fridays. Brunswick stew tends to sell better when it's colder weather than it does warmer weather. So we've kind of started tapering off on making Brunswick stew for the remainder of spring and summer. And she reached out to me and sent me a message saying that she no longer could cook. She was in bed most of the time, and that she looked forward to the Brunswick stew and would I reconsider. And I sent her a message back letting her know that I was sorry that, she was not feeling well and not able to get out of the house and be as productive as she wanted to be any longer, but that if she would let me know, I would be happy to make a batch of Brunswick stew for her and her husband, and they could come and pick it up and just let me know when they need a fresh batch.
That's awesome.
So, whatever we can do to try and help the community out and our customers, because really they are like family to us.
Yeah.
And we are so appreciative of everybody.
That's awesome. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning into The Fiber. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. If you want to learn more about Live Oak Fiber, visit us at liveoakfiber.com.